Hello, I'm Will.
Hello, I'm Johnny. And
And
together we're Will and Johnny. So today we're going to take a little bit of time to talk to you about food, leisure, people and places. I guess the first question, Will, what makes a great restaurant experience?
Well, it's probably something we have a lot to talk about. I'm not sure if the time is right. In my personal opinion is, either as a restaurant or something else, is wherever the customer is picked up with his or her expectation, brought them into the place, and when they leave, they walk away with something memorable, something they can talk to other people about, and which potentially brings them back. So I would not pinpoint it on it is this, it is the plate, it is the spend, it is the combination of things, particularly people, which we'll talk about later, and create this holistic moment for a customer so that the customer's expectations are not matched but over delivered or over created so that the customer has something to talk about when they leave. What do you think? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a curation of a number of ingredients, and I don't mean the ingredients on the plate.
No.
I mean the ambience, the environment, the space, the place, the people you're with. It's all of those things, and the restaurant has such a huge part to play in more than just putting food and drink on
Absolutely.
the table, which I guess in many respects brings me on to people, because our biggest issue at the moment in our industry is people.
Yeah.
And I know you've got a really strong view on that.
I do, yeah. Is it just before we jump into this, just a sidestepping a little.
Yeah.
Think of all the experience you have, and I mean the experience is very vast, and we're both in this industry for such a long period of time. In the recent years, I have the feeling that we are putting more effort and time into the way how something looks versus what the narrative is we're actually telling. Because I think this is vital before you talk about people, because when we talk about people, we need to talk about how do we bring them along.
Yeah.
But I feel we spend more time in picking a chair or picking a lamp than we spend in what do we tell our people? Do our people eat our food? Do they actually know what our food is? Do our people understand what the story is? Can they deliver it?
Yeah.
Before we even talk about how do we spend them and treat them and whatever. Don't you think this is would you have the same view that
I think there's
we
a
do
lot
that
of
too
it.
much?
There's a lot of it. I think the world is slowly turning round to focus on people. But you're right. I think there are many years of where the architect and the interior designer were far more important than the operations team. In fact, I remember being handed restaurants where you're told this is what it is. Somebody else has designed it, somebody else has fitted it out, and this is how it goes now. You've got to staff it, manage it, and run it. And some of the rather silly things that went on as a result of that, because the people who were doing it weren't restaurant people. So yeah, too much on the design. And actually, what I've loved about COVID and post-COVID, and there are a lot of things not to love about it, to be fair,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
one of the things I've loved about it is the emergence, the phoenix-like rising from the ashes after COVID, of some absolutely brilliant places where interior design is irrelevant.
Would you have an example?
I think a load of some of the market halls that are out there, some of the great places that you visit in cities, whether it's Camden Market or it's Manifesto in Prague, these places are built out of not permanent restaurant spaces. There's quite a few good restaurants all around the world that you can go to, and there are plenty in Berlin at the moment where they haven't bothered about the interior design because who the people are and what the product is on the plate sings. It absolutely sings. It's not about the space.
I think I wholeheartedly agree with you. And since we're now moving to the people, since you raised it before, so I have a really strong opinion about this. Why? I don't think our people, the challenge we have with people started with COVID.
Mm.
It started 2 decades ago when we kind of realized we always get new supply of new staff members. We never really considered how to treat them properly. We
And
pay them.
there's a truth. If ever there was one, there's a truth.
We pay them rubbish.
Mm.
Overall, of course, there's exceptions always, but we pay them rubbish. We give them a job description, which I think compares with the job description of a CEO. They need to understand the customers. They need to be friendly. They need to be communicative. They should have a memory like a, I don't know what. So at the end of the day, for this little pay, bad treatment, we literally send them out and say, this is what you need to do. Now, before COVID, we always had this supply. What was the first thing we did when COVID hit us? Everywhere in the world, we let go of hundreds of thousands of millions of people in our industry, literally overnight. The owners not so much, but the people had to consider, damn, what do I do now? And now, after COVID, we try to get the same people back with that level of value we showed them for such a long period of time. I just don't think that can be fixed by saying, hey, look, we're open up again. Come back. Here's how great this is, because I don't think it is.
Yeah, agree. Totally agree. I think there are exceptions. There are companies who have really good retention rates. There are companies that have. It was interesting when I saw the Pesca presentation. You know, really good example. We don't have a staffing problem. You know, Sven is an the whole company, outstanding company. But they're doing things very differently. And I think, you know, I was reading in the news yesterday, the Savoy Hotel have refitted all their staff facilities because they want to win the war on talent. Well, you know, for me, that's sort of letting the battle go a little bit too far and then doing something about it. There are lots of great companies out there.
But I think Sven's example is perfect because he's a representative of a generation which basically stands on stage, doesn't carry any baggage from the past, doesn't follow the same kind of thoughts we all had, how things should be, and actually takes his stuff as part of a family and saying, what actually makes you happy? And if I can create that framework, I will find a way to create it. There's still job to be done, but at the end of the day, if you want to spend more time on the workplace, spend more time because you spend more time with your colleagues anyway, right?
Yep.
And if you, one of my favorite examples when it comes to the way how I feel people are apparently treated is the Zoom in London. I like the way how they approach this. This entire flow of how you as a customer kind of get treated without this, you know, regime of it has to follow that pathway.
Absolutely.
Just the way that I feel as an individual, I feel picked up when I stand in line. And as an individual, I feel treated really well when I actually sitting in the restaurant. And it comes almost effortlessly. And I reached out to the CEO a while ago, and what I got back is this deep conviction that's the way how it's done.
Yes.
It's not this program written in 150 pages which says this is what happens. No, it's this inner conviction. A person needs to be treated transparently, openly, and honestly, so that you feel this is my place. And that's what I love in our industry when that's done.
And I find that really interesting because you live in Dubai, your business is based in Dubai, and you work all over the world, which is amazing. I mean, what a great hub to live in as well, because you can get almost anywhere really easily.
Very true.
But, you know, for me, I spent a lot of years working in the GCC, Dubai in the early years. And that was the thing that used to upset me the most, was the way that, especially the hotels, would train their staff to robotically deliver the food to the table, but there was nothing else.
No.
And what fills me with joy now, actually, is to go to Dubai and go and have some of the world-class, outstanding service experiences in restaurants there, not just great food or great environment. That, you know, that to me is a big change, a big commitment to people. Still a long way to go, but you know, post-COVID, our industry is still up to its neck in the problem of not having enough quality people.
Speaking about the Middle East, it's just because you brought it up. I tend to agree with you in regards to the service is so much better than it was, I still feel that we still apply the concept of we throw more body against the problem and hope if we throw more bodies, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
When it comes to transporting of a narrative, something where you as a customer, when you don't know what the concept is, whatever it is, Nobu or whatever the names are, does the stuff really help me to understand what you're standing for?
Yeah.
In my experience, I would say it's a 50-50 chance that I get it. But what about the places which are not the highest level of our industry? What are the ones underneath? I like concepts like L'Osteria in the way how they don't own the product. They own the social. They own this community character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can argue about the quality of products in every aspect, but at the end of the day, you come there and you get easily into that mood of, this is a place I want to be. And I really enjoy this very much.
Yeah.
It's not something I would write home about, but it gives me what I wanted, that sense of belonging to a certain extent. If you think of the Middle East now, you have everything known to man in this category. You have literally everything known to man in that category.
Yeah.
You have literally nothing, almost nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
And whatever is in the middle is still treated like you order something, I give it to you. In my personal opinion, we should really get back to understand that there's a difference between service and hospitality, especially in a region where hospitality is part of the culture, kind of inviting
totally
friends,
agree.
being
Totally
generous.
Yeah, yeah.
No, we are more this, let's train a monkey and bring stuff from here to there because that's where we think this is what the job is. I think it's not. And I feel and I sense there's a massive gap in education or training of skill to that number of people which serve you, not the ones which own the place, not the one the head chef in the kitchen, but the people which interact with you. I still feel there's a massive gap in
I would agree.
getting the message across.
I would agree. It's going to take a while, definitely.
Yeah.
So people is clearly your passion.
Oh,
so
yeah, it is.
let's move on to place now.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the observations I think that you and I are seeing in the industry is there's an awful lot of people, I'm going to call it place washing, talking about how we make places, how we create great places. There are people with huge titles that are now being employed across the world to understand how to make places. I mean, the fundamentals have never changed. I think we went through a period of time where landlords and developers built soulless, very efficient buildings that delivered what they needed to deliver in the way of office space or retail space or whatever it might be. But again, COVID has shaken that to its core because, of course, the office worker hasn't come back in the same numbers. Retail has had a difficult time. It was having a difficult time before COVID, and a little bit like our employment issues, it simply accelerated that. But making great places is it architectural? Is it design? Is it tenants? Is it occupiers? Is it people? What's your take on that?
Well, you said before it's the sum of ingredients which make the dish, right? It's not one element. Although, since we're talking about retail and the way how things are created, I just feel we are so bad in storytelling. We're really good in individual work, but we're not necessarily very good in a holistic story to tell. And I think if there's one thing I learned out of COVID, people are longing for stories. People want to feel welcomed and warm and kind of, picked up wherever they were, so that they have that moment of joy. And obviously COVID will be forgotten in a couple of years from now. It already starts to be forgotten in so many different areas because we are so, as humans, we just move on, right, for the next crisis to happen. However, that element of being picked up and kind of almost embraced properly, that storytelling element I miss so many times. You just spoke about food halls the other day, and a moment ago. If you think when food halls started, while ago. It's not yesterday, right? We always
No.
have this feeling in our industry when
Been a
somebody
long,
pops
long
up,
time.
we say,
Yeah.
"Ooh, there's a food hall." Well, there were
Yeah,
food
it's been a
halls
long time.
in the world
Mm.
decades ago,
Hundreds of years ago.
hundreds of years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
So it's not necessarily something really new, but now not every food hall gets across what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's just a collection of individual things
Mhm.
without an overarching story.
Yeah.
And as a customer, I go in and I'm thinking, all right, okay, not sure. I'm not sure what they want to
But
tell me.
isn't, I'm with you totally on that, but
Yeah.
isn't that what, if you look at the birthplace of food halls, traditionally it was the market in the town or city. It was where you bought your groceries. It was where you bought your meats and your
Yeah.
cheese and your bread, and then
It was a
and then
community
people
gathering. Yeah.
started to sit and eat there,
Yeah.
and then it became more of a place. And a lot of the market halls around the world have reinvented themselves
Oh yeah.
because the big supermarkets have taken so much of the food spend that these places have become food emporiums.
Mhm.
But I mean, the fundamental for hundreds of years is just putting a load of people together in one space, a lot of operators doing stuff. And then there's the overlay on top of that,
Yeah.
because our guest now,
Mhm.
post-COVID, wants so much more.
Oh yeah.
So much more. They want entertainment. They want to be wowed. They want 15-minute holidays. I love that expression. Where the guest wants to be able to, instead of going on holiday for 2 weeks and relaxing, they want to be able to go somewhere and relax for 15 minutes around
Yeah.
something, food and drink.
Yeah.
And actually, you know Starbucks really well for obvious reasons. But Starbucks absolutely typified that by some of their amazing drinks, which have been copied by lots of other people
Yeah.
now. But you can sit down for 15 minutes and dive your way into a frappuccino
Yeah.
in the summer and dream that you're
Yeah.
on holiday
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Which
I love that.
that indulgence element, which
Yeah.
apparently some brands now have as a stronger element of themselves, I think that's super important for anything you build. But since our generations don't really understand what the original marketplace
No,
was, because they didn't have access to it, at least, or they did not look for it. I think that is also a narrative which has to be explained. Because if you look in the 21st century, what's our community? Our community is social media, right? Instagrams, whatever it is. So we create communities, although they are not real. They are
They're not real.
communities, but
Yeah.
they're not real.
Yeah.
There is no
Yeah.
physical interaction. But apparently, from looking at the traffic numbers in these places, there is apparently an interest for people to go to a place and hang out with other people, total strangers, by the way. So, but still, to a certain extent, we have to explain, or we have to guide them to a certain extent,
Yeah, we do.
so that they understand what to do. Do you remember when Big Mama Group opened
Yeah.
La Felicita in Paris?
Yeah.
Total insanity, right? Let's be
Yeah.
honest. They built it and everybody thought, this is total nuts.
Yeah.
And you went there and you thought, this is,
Nuts.
what is this? But somehow they picked up every generation, every gender,
Yeah,
every group known to us,
absolutely.
and everyone found a place to say, this is what I really like.
Yeah.
And somehow they didn't over design it, they didn't overthink it, but still created a certain flow for us to say, this is a place I'd like to go back to.
Yeah.
And I think, to your question from before, we sometimes over-create and over-design the space,
Yep.
but we do not necessarily create something people can easily connect to, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
No, it totally does. And I think this is where, you can walk into a restaurant and it's got lots of people in it and it has zero atmosphere. Same, you can walk into a shopping place and it has zero
Oh, yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think it's the way you play those cards, and Big Mama is a super example of that. But going back to yours, actually, L'Osteria is a super example
Absolutely.
of it. It's a super neighbourhood feel, comfortable, drop your coat at the door, relax, you know what you're going to get. Is it the very best pizza pasta in the world? No, but it's bloody good value for money. And you know it's going to be delivered superbly. And you know the people care.
Oh, yeah.
And when we travel to Czech Republic, my wife is Czech, we drive all the way across to Czech Republic from good old England.
Yeah.
We don't call it Great Britain anymore because it's frankly not
Wow,
great. But
I do not comment on that.
but we stop in Bochum,
Yeah.
and we stop there because the hotel is next to a L'Osteria.
Uh-huh.
And my kids demand that we go to L'Osteria.
Yeah.
which I think is, and we're waiting to see them grow more under McWin in UK and other countries as well, because they've got such a huge opportunity. Quite late to the party. If you think about pizza and pasta restaurants, the UK was doing Pizza Express and all these other brands in the late 60s. But they are doing it so well.
Oh yeah, they do.
Love it.
And I think that is a great example for. I know there's a lot of thinking going into the concept, and there's a lot of consideration how to do it. But at the end of the day, for me as a customer, I never get overwhelmed by it. I just go into the place and I enjoy the place, and I might leave the place.
Yeah.
And I will remember that it was good. I will not write an essay about it, about the greatness of things. However, I will definitely come back because it's a place where you and I could go.
Yeah.
Is where I could go with my wife. I could go with my daughter. I could go with friends.
Yeah.
That's a place. And I think every place in the world which has figured out a way to do that element of I am welcoming enough so that you come regularly.
Yes.
I'm not overwhelming you with my own greatness. And by the way, I'm also a strong believer that there's too much complacency in our industry. We're not being honest to each other.
We don't have time for that today.
We stand up on stages and tell ourselves, hey, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's so much to learn from how things are, but we never ask ourselves these questions because somehow that feels
really interesting.
inconvenient.
So I suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I still pinch myself every day and think, how did I manage to get to the point where I'm at in the world at the moment? But at the end of the day, it's hard work, and you've put in the hours, you've put in the time, you've put in the career. We both have.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If there was one place you could go
Yeah.
for a meal, not your last one, one place you could go, where would it be?
So there's a couple of places actually where we do this, but since you asked specifically, there's a particular Lebanese restaurant which I like very much in Dubai. And the reason why I like it is because it's this kind of compressed version of what we just discussed. The people are super friendly. The food's fresh and good. It's probably the worst designed place I know. It's whoever did it was more thinking of more of a fast food place than a restaurant.
Yeah.
But when you put all the elements together, that's the stuff you forget about, because what you get is this combination of great food, good value, whatever. The place is called Al Beirut. If I look at the QSR place, for that matter, I think one of the places or one of the concepts which does this really well is Itu in the UK.
Yes, I would agree.
It's not. It's the same thing. It's not. What are you expecting? Well, your expectation might be it's a QSR place, but you get a bit more than a QSR place at the end. The food's really good. The concept's really nicely done. It looks really nice. It's very accommodating. Concepts like this, I like to go because the high-end moments, the things where you go to the top chefs of the world, there is a massive expectation what you get, and there's a high probability that you might actually be disappointed. And I support this with an example to this question, although it's a hotel. The Burj Al Arab in Dubai is such a place. If somebody says to you, and you have never traveled in your life, and somebody says there's a 7-star hotel, then everything you will get there will be the best ever. There's no doubt, because this is how this is set up.
Yeah.
If you spend like us, if you spend 3 decades on traveling, and you've been to the world, and you've been to amazing places, you're going to set up an expectation in your head, which no hotel in the world can ever deliver. But if you tell me you're the best there is, I'm going to compare you against every of my expectations.
Of course you are.
And every of my experiences, not expectations. So when I come in and you fail in one element, you lose me.
Yeah.
Great experiences or great examples for me, concepts like Nusret. I don't know. I don't want to criticize concepts, but the idea is they never picked me up.
See, you're clearly naturally greedy, because I think I said 1.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's me. Right. Here's the thing. Right. Yeah, you're right.
So come on.
I can't. So
What about
what's
me?
what's yours?
One.
Do you have one? Do you have one?
One, because
Do you really have one?
Yeah, I do have one. A very, very personal. So it's Hakkasan.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
Hakkasan. It's
Okay.
the first Hakkasan, Hanway Place, bottom of Tottenham Court Road.
Okay.
And it was the last meal I had with my brother before he passed away. And they were the most sensitive. It was just the most brilliant meal I think I've ever had. The food was fine. The drink was fine. But the way they dealt with the whole thing was just, they gave us a nice quiet area. We had an absolutely amazing time. And I think that's where, of course, the food's brilliant. It's lovely.
Yeah.
The service was good. But just the whole making the place, making the experience, and making that time, the moment that I can then remember forever. That was for me and it was a sad, because we knew what was going to happen. But it was also a very happy time because we were really well looked after. I think that's a really special example. And I think there are lots of others. The restaurant that my company is named after, Victory, is the most beautiful organic restaurant on the top of a mountain in Cyprus. It just sells chicken and pork. Yeah. And that's it. And done on this beautiful rotating char grill.
Can be very good.
This stuff is not about how good the plateware is and how good the wall coverings are and how good the uniforms are. For me, we mustn't forget the essence of what we're here for, food and drink.
What you just did is what I meant before when we speak about a narrative or a storytelling, right? Yeah. Because the place almost becomes secondary. Could be any place in the world. If it's that moment which you can take away, that moment in any kind of class, that will always bring you back. Because the food, unless it's QSR where you don't have a lot of expectation, but the food has to be good enough, because if it's not, then that would be a downer. But if it's good, but the rest is what you just said, giving you that framework where you can feel really good, or you can enjoy that or embrace that moment, that's what I think we are after. But since we're also working for, or since we're also here to talk about kind of development and retail and developers, and we touched on it before, with your experience, if you think of modern development, and we're both consultants, do you think there is still room for consulting? What's your take on this, given that there is so many developers out there, so many projects out there? Do they need consultants? Do they need more or less? What do you think?
Yes. Can I give a short answer?
Yes.
And a long answer. The yes is, I think, what we know and what we do is needed more than ever. We've moved past the era of building things because they look nice. We're now moved into these things need to work. They need to function. They need to be, yes, of course, they need to generate rent and they need to produce a commercial return. But more importantly, the reason that they generate rent and a commercial return is that people love them. They want to come and enjoy them. And so whether it's a hotel development, which you choose the right brand and you advise on the right match to the type of guest that you're going to get, or whether it is a retail redevelopment where you're introducing, like you and I do all the time, more food and more leisure, because retail is a little bit tougher than it used to be. In some cases, a lot tougher than it used to be. But I think, the point is that you need that experienced brain that can talk about what has happened elsewhere. And I found that particularly somewhere like Meitzeil, when we did Foodtopia there. Nobody, and I mean nobody, believed that would work. And I was back there last week and having joyous moments. I call them joyous moments because actually it's when tears start to roll out of the corner of your eye. Because you know what you did to make that happen. And nobody believed it would happen, and yet for some reason the client and ECE and everybody else stuck with me and with the rest of the team, and we went out there and we delivered it.
Very good.
After COVID, it is pumping. So really, really, really happy. But I think the answer clearly, yes. A good advice is always going to be needed. What is needed more is for clients to open their ears and take it. Not listen and then ignore it. Because I can show you 101 locations around the world where clients have ignored the advice. They thought they knew better, and they've built something which is less than appropriate.
I would 100% agree with you. How are we on time? Where do we are? We're on 30 minutes, actually.
Yeah, so we're pretty. So for this one, we're going to have to say goodbye in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think you'll be seeing a little bit more from the two of us.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We certainly have. And I think all that remains to be said is it's goodbye from me.
Yeah, and a very good bye from me. It was a real pleasure. And yeah, we'll definitely see each other again soon.
See you soon.
Bye,
Ciao
guys.
now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.